The story of Viking England does not begin with thunder or fire. It begins with silence. After the Romans withdrew from Britain, the island felt as though it were slowly exhaling. Stone roads faded into grass, forts emptied, and the distant echo of marching legions dissolved into memory. In their place, small kingdoms emerged, scattered like islands within an island. Britannic rulers held the west, while new settlers from across the North Sea arrived quietly along the eastern shores. They came in narrow boats and carried unfamiliar gods in their hearts. Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, people who would one day give their name to England itself, began to shape a new world from the ruins of the old. Over generations, they formed rival kingdoms, 7 realms that would later be remembered as the Heptarchy. Each kingdom rose and fell in cycles of war and uneasy peace, their rulers crowned beneath gray skies and their warriors sworn to shield walls that would decide the fate of the land. Even after these kingdoms embraced Christianity, the culture of war never truly faded. Kings measured their worth in battles won and alliances forged. Mercia and Northumbria struggled endlessly for dominance, their borders shifting like tides. In the late 8th century, Mercia stood strongest under King Offa, whose great earthwork still cuts across the Welsh border like a scar upon the earth. Yet beyond the horizon, across cold northern seas, another force was beginning to move, slowly at first, like a storm gathering far away. In Scandinavia, life was shaped by fjords, forests, and long winters. Communities learned to master the sea, building ships that moved like shadows across the water. Their beliefs remained rooted in older gods, Odin, Thor, and the promise of glory beyond death. Pressure at home, ambition abroad, and a restless curiosity pushed many to sail outward. At first, they came as traders, exchanging goods along distant shores. But wealth and opportunity often blur into temptation, and soon raiders began to strike monasteries along the coasts of Britain. These early attacks were brief flashes of violence, sudden arrivals, quick plunder, and silent departures before organized resistance could gather. Monks recorded the terror in trembling script, describing dragon-proud ships and warriors who seemed almost otherworldly. Over time, these seafarers came to be known as Vikings, a word that described their journey rather than their origin. The raids grew bolder. Some groups lingered through winter, testing the strength of local kingdoms. Settlements appeared in the Northern Isles and along Irish coasts. Anglo-Saxon rulers fought back, sometimes defeating the newcomers, sometimes paying silver to buy peace. The rhythm of conflict ebbed and flowed, but the deeper transformation had only just begun. In the kingdom of Wessex, a line of rulers emerged who understood that survival would require patience as much as strength. King Egbert strengthened his realm and confronted Viking forces when they threatened the south. His successors inherited both his victories and his burdens. Yet, despite their efforts, the storm gathering beyond the sea had not yet reached its full force. Then came the year that changed everything. In 865, a fleet unlike any seen before appeared off the eastern coast. Not a scattered band of raiders, but a vast coalition drawn from across the Scandinavian world. Chroniclers would later call it the Great Heathen Army. These warriors did not come merely to plunder, they came to carve out new kingdoms. Their advance felt relentless. Cities fell, alliances shattered, and rival Anglo-Saxon kingdoms struggled to unite against a threat that moved with unsettling speed. York, the heart of Northumbria, became a Scandinavian stronghold. East Anglia collapsed, its king remembered more as a martyr than a ruler. Mercia faltered, caught between resistance and negotiation. Amid this chaos, a young prince named Alfred stood in the shadow of older kings. Few could have predicted that he would become one of the defining figures of the age. Battles unfolded across hills and valleys, shield walls colliding, banners falling, and warriors whispering prayers before dawn. Victory and defeat blurred together, and at times it seemed the old Anglo-Saxon world might vanish entirely. When Alfred retreated into the marshlands of Somerset, pursued by enemies and stripped of much of his kingdom, the future felt uncertain. The wetlands were quiet and hidden, a place where survival depended on patience rather than glory. Yet from that refuge, he began to gather strength once more. Slowly, allies returned, warriors rallied. Hope, fragile but persistent, began to rise. The clash at Edington became a turning point. After long struggle, Alfred forced the Viking leader Guthrum to accept peace and baptism, dividing England into new spheres of influence. For a time, the land breathed again. Alfred used the years that followed to reshape his kingdom, building fortified towns, organizing defenses, and encouraging learning and faith. His reforms were not loud or dramatic, they were steady, deliberate, and transformative. After his death, the story continued through his children, Edward and Athelflaed. Together, they reclaimed territory piece by piece, constructing a network of fortified settlements that reshaped the map of England. Their campaigns were as much about rebuilding communities as they were about winning battles. Gradually, the idea of a unified England began to emerge, not as a single moment, but as a slow convergence of many victories. The next generation would carry that vision even further. Athelstan, Alfred's grandson, inherited a realm that stood stronger than ever before. Through diplomacy and warfare, he extended influence across much of Britain, forging alliances while confronting new Viking coalitions that rose against him. The great battle remembered as Brunanburh would test everything that had been built. There, amid the clash of shield walls and the echo of horns across open fields, the fate of the kingdom hung in balance. Though victory came at great cost, it secured a fragile unity. England emerged not as a peaceful land, but one forged through centuries of struggle, exchange, and transformation. The Vikings, who once arrived as raiders, had become settlers, traders, and rulers. Cultures intertwined, languages blended, and the identity of the island changed forever. And so the story of Viking England is not only a tale of war, it is a story of endurance, of kingdoms that rose from ruins, of leaders who adapted to an uncertain world, and of a land shaped by both storm and stillness. In the quiet spaces between battles, history moved forward, carried by those who rebuilt after every wave of change.